Hello, everybody. A new face for you all today. I'm Pranashish from Ireland, and we're very, very happy to restart with this wonderful online Sangha of Devotional Association and Sripad Mahayogi Prabhu's Bhagavad Gita talks. This was supposed to be the last meeting, the last sixth chapter to finish off with, but we have great news for everybody. We must thank Sripad Madhusudan Maharaj and Sripad BV Prabhu, because they have humbly requested that Sripad Mahayogi continue with his discourses on the Bhagavad Gita. The original plan was they do 6 chapters each. And next week, Sripad Madhusudan Maharaj was to start. And then after another 6, Sripad BV Prabhu would complete with the last 6 chapters. But they felt, as we all feel, that there's a very nice flow going. And actually, they are inspired to hear Sripad Mahayogi complete the whole Gita. They are actually asking for him to continue. And so we are all very happy and pleased with this, and we thank them dearly. And yeah, I mean, it's their inspiration that we humbly beg Mahayogi Prabhu to continue this. It is a big deal. It is a lot to ask. It does take a lot. It's not just that he rocks up and gives a class. He prepares for this. He meditates on the shlokas. He gives it great thought. It's not just that he came in 5 minutes ago and gives a class. This is a serious undertaking, and it's a very, very big thing, and we really appreciate it. And I'm speaking from my own experience. I mean, I first read the Bhagavad Gita 30 years ago. And actually, during these courses, I am hearing it for the first time. I had never heard such wonderful explanations. And we know that this is based on his lifetime of service, first under Srila Prabhupada as his disciple, then under Srila Sridhar Maharaj as also his disciple, and also serving Srila Govinda Maharaj. Now, what we don't realize is, we call these 3 our Trinity of Divine Guardians, right? These are our Trinity, our Holy Trinity. Only a handful of people met these 3 wonderful, wonderful pure Vaishnavas. And even a smaller amount actually rendered personal service to these 3, to our Divine Trinity. Sripad Mahayogi Maharaj is one of the only, is a small handful of people in the whole Vaishnav world who rendered personal service to our Holy Divine Trinity of Divine Guardians. So we really have to take this into account, that this is a very special opportunity for all of us. And we really thank Brinda for hosting and getting this idea, and for hosting this wonderful, wonderful Gita talks. Okay, so we hope it all continues, and we hope you all join us. And we know that many more people watch the videos later on YouTube. So thank you all very much for helping this happen. We also need a little bit of help financially for the license. So if everybody gives $10, that's enough for the whole year. We already have $250. If we can get $10 off another 30 people, we're happy, we're fine. Okay, so that's enough for me. And Sripad Mahayogi Prabhu will continue with the final reflections on the 6th chapter of Srimad Bhagavad Gita. And next week, we will continue with the 7th chapter. So thank you all for joining us. And we hope you follow us for the rest of this wonderful journey, which will take a few months. We don't know how long it's going to take, but it's a wonderful journey of meditations for everybody. They're great meditations. And the Bhagavad Gita is such a wonderful, wonderful book. I mean, I know it's the most distributed book, Krishna book in the world by ISKCON. They recently passed 500 million books distributed worldwide. That's 500 million Krishna conscious books distributed in the world. And the Bhagavad Gita is probably the most distributed Vaishnava book in the world. So we cannot begin to underestimate the value of trying to understand this most important spiritual book, which helps us continue on this path of self-realization and our own journey of self-discovery. There's no answer that cannot be answered through the study of Srimad Bhagavad Gita. So we humbly thank Sripad Mahayogi with all our hearts for helping us on our spiritual journey and to help us understand these most important questions that we will ever ask ourselves or that we could ever ask anybody else. And these questions can all be answered through the Srimad Bhagavad Gita. Okay, thank you very much, everybody. I'm happy to help out anytime. I'm so happy to be part of this Sangha. And again, this is a Sangha. A Sangha means association. It also means family. So I know we're all across the world, we're all separated, but there's a thread coming through everybody through this. We may not know anybody, we may never meet in person, but this Bhagavad Gita family it's real. It's real. You know, we're not just faces on a screen. We're real people. And this is helping us all to help each other. So I live alone. I have no association here where I live. Most devotees are in that situation. We don't live beside a temple. We don't have a devotee friend who lives across the road. So we're all alone to some degree. So it's really nice that we can feel part of this family. And Mahayogi is our father in this role that he's showing, and he's our teacher, he's our mentor, and he's our inspiration. And hopefully we can do some service to help this wonderful, wonderful Vaishnava continue doing what he's doing. So Vanchakalpatrubhyascha kripa sindhubayevacha patitanam pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. All glories to his holiness and his grace, Sripad Mahayogi Prabhu ki jai.
Hare Krishna. Well, thank you for that. Thank you for that introduction. Very humbling. That's high praise. So, Om Jnana Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurmilitam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkness of ignorance, but my Gurudev opened my eye with a salve of transcendental knowledge. I offer my humble obeisances to him. Sarvo Panisharo Gavo Dogda Gopalanandana Parto Vatsa Sudhir Bhokta Dugda Gitamritam Mahat. This Gita Upanishad, Bhagavad Gita, the essence of all the Upanishads, is just like a cow. And Lord Krishna, who was famous as a cowherd boy, is milking this cow. Arjuna is just like a calf, and learned scholars and pure devotees are to drink the nectar of the Bhagavad Gita. Well, we left off in the 6th chapter, and my intention was to try to finish this chapter in 2 goes, but there's a lot here. Today, everyone's attracted to yoga practice. There's an international yoga day where millions of people participate. But a lot of people kind of, in the popular imagination anyway, sort of miss the purpose of yoga. There's naked yoga, flying yoga, all these different ideas about yoga practice today. And mostly yoga is sold as a way to resolve your spinal problems, stay healthy, have firm body, good sex. But this is not the real purpose of yoga. We've discussed this. The 6th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita is called Dhyana Yoga, or the path of meditation. I've explained before the word yoga really means path. So the path of meditation, some commentators call it Atma Yoga, since the focus here is on the Atma. So we should understand that all these different yogas that we encounter in the 21st century were born originally out of the Patanjali system, which is referred to here in the Bhagavad Gita. We don't know when Patanjali wrote his sutras. We think they probably came after the Bhagavad Gita, but in any case, the system was practiced as long ago as the Dwapara Yuga, perhaps 5,000 years ago. So generally speaking, the yoga system of Patanjali involves 8 things. It's an 8-fold path. The Buddhist path is also 8-fold, but has a different goal. And the different 8 elements are asana, yama, niyama, pranayama, pratyahara, dharana, dhyana, and samadhi. What is mainly focused on today is called asana, which means different postures. So here in the 6th chapter, Krishna refers to that. Shucho deshe pratishtapya sthiramasanamaatmanaha natyuchitam natinicham kailajina kushodaram tatraikagram manakritva jatachitandriya kriya upavishyasane yunjyad yogam atma vishuddhaye. So he says, yoga atma vishuddhaye. Shuddha means pure. So for purifying the soul, this yoga, this path. And Prabhupada translates like this. He says, to practice yoga, one should go to a secluded place and should lay kusha grass on the ground and then cover it with a deer skin and a soft cloth. The seat should neither be too high nor too low and should be situated in a sacred place. The yogi should then sit on it very firmly and practice yoga to purify the heart by controlling his mind, senses, and activities, and fixing the mind on one point. So in today's Western yoga societies, people are interested in material benefits, but they don't really understand this idea of Atma Yoga, or the transcendental science of purifying the soul, purifying the Atma. And we can see that the requisites here are very difficult. You have to find a secluded place. Nowadays, it's very difficult to find a place that is not saturated with people. Kusha grass, pure kusha grass is hard to find. And a deer skin and a soft cloth, well, that's accessible. But nowadays, people use a foam pad. Then again, we don't want to question the sincerity of people who are struggling to purify the mind and senses and practice yoga. But the real meditation for this age is found in the Hare Krishna mantra and also in the Brahma Gayatri. By means of the Brahma Gayatri, we meditate on the soul and its situation within the material world. Bhur, Bhuva, Sva, Savitur, Varenyam. the word savitur, which is, it's interesting because the Sanskrit word savitur is close to sabiduria in Spanish. So that sabiduria varenyam, which is venerable. But savitur in Sanskrit means the sun. So the source of all enlightenment, the greatest light that we know, is really the sun. The sun illuminates this universe, Bhur, Bhuva, Swa, from the lower planetary systems to the higher planetary systems. Of course, we don't take such a literal understanding of Bhur, Bhuva, and Swa as to consider that this has to do exclusively with physical planets. But generally, Srila Sridhar Maharaj has taught us that the world of exploitation, or this material world, is the world of experience, if you like, is Bhu. That's what we know, Bhu Mandala, the world of experience. Above the world of experience is the mental world, Sva, Svargaloka, sometimes considered as the heavenly planets, but in a kind of deeper interpretation, the mental world, and Bhur, Bhuva, Sva, right? Bhuva, the mental world, Sva, the higher intellectual world. So what illuminates the world of experience, the world of the mind, and the world of the intellect, what illuminates that, what gives it light, is really the soul, the jiva. The sun represents the soul. The sun is the highest form of illumination. But really what illuminates this material world is spiritual energy. The whole material world floats within spiritual consciousness, like an iceberg floats in the ocean. So what illuminates the soul? If it's true that this material world, this time-space continuum of objects, physical objects moving according to the laws of physics, ordinary energy moving within time, what illuminates that is consciousness. Without consciousness, really, there's nothing. But what illuminates consciousness? So Krishna's teaching in the Bhagavad Gita that what illuminates the Atma is the Paramatma. And what illuminates the Paramatma is Bhagavan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. And who illuminates him? Sri Radha. And all this is found in the Hare Krishna mantra, because Hare represents the energy of God, and Krishna is God personally. So when we say Hare Krishna, we're addressing both Radha and Krishna. And in this way, meditating on the highest love and the highest lover simultaneously. But because this is sometimes difficult to apprehend, we have the Gayatri mantra to help guide us, because you can, wherever you are, you can always think, who am I? I'm surrounded by this world of experience, but there's a higher world. And what illuminates all these different worlds? The soul. And who illuminates the soul? God. And what is God? Krishna. And who illuminates him? Radharani. So this is a very powerful, deep meditation found in the Brahma Gayatri mantra. And yogis during this age who are initiated in the chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra can access that kind of understanding. And that's a very deep yoga practice. Krishna continues. He says he's giving the idea of how to meditate, dhyana yoga. One should hold one's body, neck, and head erect in a straight line and stare steadily at the tip of the nose. Thus, with an unagitated, subdued mind, devoid of fear, completely free from sex life, one should meditate upon me within the heart and make me the ultimate goal of life. Prashantatma here means very peaceful. brahmachari vriteshtitaha. So there in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna mentions the word brahmachari. And Jagyavalka comments on the rules of celibacy. He says the vow of brahmacharya is meant to help one completely abstain from sex indulgence in work, words, and minds at all times, under all circumstances, and all places. Karmana manasa vacha sarvavastasu sarvara sarvaitra maituna tyago brahmacharyam prachakshate. Maituna means sex, and tyag means renunciation. So maituna tyago brahmacharyam prachakshate. Prabhupada says, no one can perform correct yoga practice through sex indulgence. Brahmacharya is taught, therefore, from childhood when one has no knowledge of sex life. So this is kind of a controversial thing in the Bhagavad Gita. But what do we mean by brahmacharya? Of course, this is especially recommended for those who live in an ashram, because if you're trying to devote yourself 24 hours a day to the service of Krishna and Guru, that's very hard to do if you're distracted by other things. So here in the explanation of the yoga system, we're being told to avoid the distraction of an active sex life. And we've seen it many times in different monasteries, in different ashrams, that sex abuse is going on. So Krishna is saying, what's distracting to the mind? Sex life is one of the most distracting things there is. Romantic sex life is a beautiful thing. There was a group in the United States called the Shakers, and one of their religious principles was no sex at all. And so the Shakers don't exist anymore. There were 3 Shakers about 15 years ago, but they were all in their 80s. But now they don't exist anymore. So now, how do you reconcile this with India, which has the biggest population in the world, next to China? You know, the thing is, the people of India, they're not Puritans. The Bhagavad Gita is not a Puritan literature. It's been interpreted in the West as such that sex has to be avoided at all costs. But this is a recommendation for a very sort of strict yoga system, and especially in temples. We don't really want the girls mixing with the boys because they won't be able to do their function as monks. But in the greater world, there's no prohibition on people falling in love and getting married and being faithful. But if you want to be a yogi, then keep it under control. Just different definitions of celibacy. To be a completely celibate monk may be to avoid all contact with the opposite sex, but on the other hand, I'm married. I've been married to the same woman for about 30 years. That's a different kind of celibacy. It's called chastity or faithfulness. So in a sense, brahmacharya may be also promoting the idea of faithfulness. If you feel that you need a partner to go through your life, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. Physical love is important. It's very difficult if you cut yourself off completely from society and you cut yourself off from any kind of physical affection. This may cause profound mental disturbance, and that's not what we're looking for. We're trying to come in contact with the soul. So Jesus Christ also says it's better if you don't get married, because what he's saying is complete dedication is the best. But if you feel that you need company in your life, that's a human thing. That's not anti-human. It's not anti-Krishna consciousness or anti-Vaishnava to be married and have a family. Srila Prabhupada had a family. Bhaktivinoda Thakur had a family. Srila Sridhar Maharaj, if you asked him, he would say, well, I have a tendency towards self-abnegation. But he didn't consider that as a great value. He would always talk about how renunciation is the other side of exploitation. Renunciation tends towards anger. It tends towards pride, because there's the pride of the renunciant. You can think, well, I'm above you because I follow these principles. I don't eat meat. I don't drink wine. I don't have sex. I don't gamble or speculate. So I'm above you. I'm holier than thou. This is not the appropriate perspective for a Vaishnava. We're to avoid too much exploitation and also too much renunciation. So the path of moderation is recomendable, as we say in Spanish. It's recommendable. Krishna says, Natyashnatas tu yogosti, nachaikantam anashnataha, nachati svapnashilasya, jagrato naiva charajuna. He says, you can't become a yogi, Arjun, if you eat too much or eat too little, sleep too much or not sleep enough. So oftentimes devotees will use this as a kind of a weapon when they talk to other devotees and say, oh, you're eating too much, or you're not eating enough, you're sleeping too much, or you're not sleeping enough. But we're not to try to criticize other Vaishnavas based on their eating and sleeping. Srila Prabhupada points out, those who indulge in animal food, drinking, smoking, and eating food which is not first offered to Krishna will suffer sinful reactions because of eating only polluted things. One who eats sin and eats more than is allotted to him cannot execute perfect yoga. It is best that one eats only prasadam. So a person in Krishna consciousness does not eat anything which is not first offered to Krishna. So we try to stick to these principles. These are very basic principles of human life. He who is regulated in his habits of eating, sleeping, recreation, and work can mitigate all material pains by practicing the yoga system. When the yogi, by practice of yoga, disciplines his mental activities and becomes situated in transcendence, devoid of all material desires, he is said to be well established in yoga. As a lamp in a windless place does not waver, so the transcendentalist, whose mind is controlled, remains always steady in his meditation on the transcendental self. So the idea is, the goal of the yoga system is samadhi. The goal of the yoga system here mentioned is to develop a higher consciousness. And these rules are meant to lead one towards a higher consciousness by helping you control the mind and senses. So then, yatro paramate chitam nirudham yoga sevaya, Krishna says, talks about samadhi. I'm trying to find where he mentions samadhi. Anyway, in the stage of perfection called trance or samadhi, one's mind is completely restrained from material mental activities by practice of yoga. So this word samadhi, it's an interesting word. It's used a lot. And sometimes people consider the idea of samadhi as this impossible divine trance state that's only achieved by the highest of the high. He says this perfection or samadhi is characterized by one's ability to see the self by the pure mind and to relish and rejoice in the self. In that joyous state, one is situated in boundless transcendental happiness, realized through transcendental senses. Established thus, one never departs from the truth, and upon gaining this, he thinks there is no greater gain. Being situated in such a position, one is never shaken, even in the midst of greatest difficulty. This indeed is actual freedom from all miseries arising from material contact. So, Prabhupada states, in the yoga system, there are two kinds of samadhi, sampragyata and asampragyata. When one is situated in the transcendental position by philosophical research, he's attained sampragyata samadhi. There's no longer any connection with mundane pleasure. So the idea of samadhi is an interesting idea. It means a kind of a trance state where you're no longer involved in the material world. And we often think, well, this must be a very elite kind of position. But Srila Prabhupada, for example, was definitely situated in samadhi. He never thought or spoke of anything else but Krishna consciousness. Srila Sridhar Maharaj was very deeply situated in samadhi. I have personal experience, and Govinda Maharaj as well. But it's interesting the way they manifested their material, quote unquote, pastimes or activities, because Srila Prabhupada was always on fire preaching. Srila Sridhar Maharaj was deeply peaceful. And Govinda Maharaj was always very joyful, laughing and joking, driving around in a car, traveling around the world. He had a little motorcycle, but always very joyful and giving out sweetness. So one may be situated, what I gather from that is one may be situated in a trance state of samadhi and continue to execute different kinds of physical activities in this world, such as speaking, working, talking. The difference is the state of mind or the state of internal trance. So Krishna says, one should engage oneself in the practice of yoga with determination and faith and not be deviated from the path. One should abandon without exception all material desires born of mental speculation and thus control all the senses on all sides by the mind. So just exactly how to engage in this practice, what activity can you do? It's variable. In this case, Krishna is telling Arjuna, do your duty as a warrior, do it as a sacrifice, do it as a gift of love, dedicate yourself to me. I'm Bhagavan, I'm the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So practice yoga like that. Gradually, step by step, one should become situated in trance by means of intelligence sustained by full conviction, and thus the mind should be fixed on the self alone and think of nothing else. Atma samshtam. So there's a couple of interesting things here. One is the Vaishnava idea of samadhi is different from the idea being presented here, in that the goal for the yogis is to be situated in trance, free from any material engagement, whereas the goal for the Vaishnavas is Krishna Prem, to be completely devoted to Krishna. Both of them are engaged in samadhi, but Sridhar Maharaj used to call it the samadhi phantom, in the sense that if your focus is to become one with God, then you deprive yourself of your own personality, and that's suicide in a sense. Once someone asked Govinda Maharaj, if God can do anything, can he commit suicide? One of those atheistic questions. If God can do anything, can he kill himself? And Govinda Maharaj said, yes, of course. God commits suicide in the Brahmajyoti, where he disappears. He has no personality. He's pure oneness, pure consciousness. So they were very stunned. That was a famous answer that Govinda Maharaj gave. From wherever the mind wanders due to its flickering and unsteady nature, one must certainly withdraw to bring it back under the control of the self. So I remember years ago when the airport in Los Angeles was considered a public place, and because supposedly we have freedom of speech in the United States, you were allowed to exercise your freedom of speech by distributing books in a public place. So we'd go to the airport and stop people and try to get them to buy the Bhagavad Gita, like Pranashish was saying at the beginning. And we used different sort of tactics. We would say, excuse me, sir. And someone would say, I don't have time. And we would say, no, you have no time. Time has you. Have you thought about that? Your time is limited. Here, read this book. This is timeless wisdom from India. And sometimes at work, we sold a few books like that. But I remember it was very difficult for me to do that because I'm an introverted person. At that point, I didn't really like having conversations with anybody. I just like reading. I'm very introverted. You can see all these books here, you know. But the devotees told me, if you love Srila Prabhupada, you have to go out and distribute his books. Why? Because those people are suffering out there. They don't know who they are. They're trapped in material existence. Okay. So there was a meditation they told us to practice. They said, now, while you're out there, remember that the people you're talking to are spirit souls. They're Atma. You are Atma. So meditate on that. Think about that as you're handing out those books. And there's a lot of distractions because in the airport, they have security. There's rock stars and movie stars going by. There's passport control and immigration control, bomb threats. It's a dangerous place. There's all these different things that will distract your mind, but you have to keep your mind concentrated on the idea that this book that you're distributing, the Bhagavad Gita, it's divine. They don't even have to read it. If they have it in their house, it will create a divine ray that will penetrate their hearts and bring them closer to Krishna. They're jivas, jivatmas, eternal souls have been wandering in this world for thousands of years in different kinds of bodies. Finally, they've reached the human form of life. And what are they doing? They're running from one place to the next. I have no time. I have no time. So you keep your mind concentrated on the task. And so this verse is nice. It says, wherever your mind wandering, sex, drugs, money, sex, money, power, pay the rent, pay the rent. Look at her. Wow. Your mind is constantly going back and forth. You can smell chocolate. Chocolate. That's good. I love that. But you have to bring it back. No, we're doing Krishna consciousness here. No, we're handing out the Bhagavad Gita. This book will surely touch their heart, and try to make a connection. Maybe you can only connect with one person in the whole day. I used to meet thousands of people. We handled upstairs in where they had Continental Airlines. there were commuter flights from Las Vegas to Los Angeles and from San Francisco. The flights were about $15 or $20 at that time. So all these businessmen would go up and back every day. And actually, they were the same people. So I would try to stop someone and they would say, I know what I have it, I saw it, I read it. Okay, excuse me, sir, I know what I have it, I saw it, I read it. Excuse me, sir, fuck off. Excuse me, sir, buzz off. Excuse me, sir, beat it. Excuse me, sir, piss off. Excuse me, sir, I have the yellow one. Oh, you have the yellow one? Yeah, I got the yellow one. Okay, good. Excuse me, sir, I have the blue one. Oh, this is the red one. You have the red one? No, I don't have the red one. Let me see. This one talks about the cosmos. Second canto, Sripad Bhagavatam. Check it out. Yeah, how much do you want for that? $5. Okay, here's 10. Good luck, keep the change. So you met one person and you thought, all right, the message of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, Srila Prabhupada, Vyasadeva, Krishna, it's going to touch another human soul. So wherever your mind was wandering, I have to pay the parking, I have to put gasoline in the car, I need to get the car fixed by the mechanic. These are very materialistic things. But Srila Prabhupada used to say, Indian railways, their symbol was a big wheel. And the motto was, keep the wheel turning. So whatever you were doing in the temple, whether you were pulling weeds out of the garden or cooking samosas for the devotees or worshiping the deities with incense or distributing books or working on the cars, the idea was keep the wheel turning so that we can continue preaching, we continue putting out the message. So wherever the mind wanders, bring it back. And remember what our goal is. So Krishna says, the yogi whose mind is fixed on me, verily, attains the highest perfection of transcendental happiness. And you will have practical experience of this if you stick to the program, if you try to make Krishna the center of your life. And what's interesting to me is we don't know Krishna, but we can know his representatives, from Bhaktivinoda Thakur to Bhaktisiddhanta to the present day. You can find somebody who you feel is more connected with Krishna than you are. Try to do something. Try to help that person. The yogi whose mind is fixed on me verily attains the highest perfection of transcendental happiness. So you will feel that happiness in your life. He is beyond the mode of passion. He realizes his qualitative identity with the Supreme. Shantarajasam, Brahmabhutam, Akalamasham. And he's free from all reactions to past deeds. So this is how you purify your karma. Thus, the self-controlled yogi constantly engaged in yoga practice becomes free from all material contamination and achieves the highest stage of perfect happiness and transcendental loving service to the Lord. So here we see, if you are engaged in this kind of practical yoga, this sort of Krishna consciousness, then you will know happiness. You may think, well, having sex is fun. I like doing bad things. Being bad is fun. But as you get older, you'll look around and see that the friends that you had in your teens and 20s who were addicted to all kinds of bad activities will suffer the consequences of that. The people who told you that they have one girlfriend for every day of the week. I used to have a friend who had a special notebook, and there was a girl for Monday, one for Tuesday, one for Wednesday. And he had to write in that book all the lies that he told the girl on Monday. So he would remember them for later. And all the lies he told the girl on Tuesday. But later it all comes crashing down. You can't keep it going. And then there's unwanted pregnancy, there's divorce. Sex is fun, but when you have sex, there's babies, these cute little cuddly packages, little bundles of love, and they want diapers and education and school and medicine, all those things. And sometimes daddies don't want to do that. And what happens? Is that the path to happiness? No, it isn't. And when you reach 30 or 40 years old, you start having regrets. Why did I do this? Why didn't I do that? But if you dedicate yourself to Krishna, you won't have those regrets. You'll look back on your time in the temple and think, how did I do that? It was amazing. I dedicated myself. I was meditating 24 hours a day. It's the greatest time in my life. So be a yogi and practice yoga like this. Krishna says a true yogi observes me in all beings and also sees every being in me. So that's, again, when you're distributing your books or doing your common work, there's different ways of looking at the environment. You can see we're in Kali Yuga. These people are contaminated. They're doing sinful activities. They're a negative influence. Or you can think within every human body, there's a jivatma, and that's divine. That's something to be worshipped. So every wave is favorable. Everything that comes into my vicinity, it's all Krishna. There's no way it's not Krishna. So when you can see that, then you're self-realized. Ikshate yoga yuktatma sarvatra samadarshana. Samadarshana means you see everyone equally. See the spirit soul within everyone. A Krishna conscious yogi is the perfect seer, Prabhupada says, because he sees Krishna situated in everyone's heart. The Lord in his Paramatma feature is situated within both the heart of the dog and that of the Brahmin. So it means you don't have to look at a dog and think, ew, that's a dirty dog. He smells bad. Ew, gross, disgusting. We don't want him near the temple. Govinda Maharaj had a dog. His name was Jimmy. I remember Jimmy. He was a German shepherd. One day, Jimmy was in the Darshan Mandap, the little temple room, the Kirtan hall, during Mangal Arti. And I thought, this is not right. He's a dirty dog. And I grabbed Jimmy by the scruff of the neck and started pulling him out of the temple. And then suddenly I realized, wait a minute, this is a German shepherd. You know, he can bite me. But later I talked to Govinda Maharaj and he said, the problem with this dog is he's just not ferocious. What can we do, Mahayogi? How can we make this dog more ferocious? He needs to guard the temple. We need a ferocious dog. So you should be able to see God within all living things. For one who sees me everywhere and everything in me, I am never lost, nor is he ever lost to me. Such a yogi who engages in the worshipful service of the Supersoul, knowing that I and the Supersoul are one, remains always in me in all circumstances. He's a perfect yogi who, by comparison to his own self, sees the true equality of all beings. So he's repeating this again and again. Now, how is that a religious principle? Well, you need to think about it. Meditate on it. Right? This man is my enemy. I hate him. He did bad things. But Bhagavad Gita says, I should see him as somehow divine. Well, isn't that the golden rule? Now, Arjuna has just heard all this from Krishna. So he says, you know, wait a minute. Really? This is too much. I can't do that. You told me I have to do all this to practice yoga? Arjuna uvacha yoyam yogas tvaya prokta samyena madhusudana etasyaham napashyami chanchalat vat shtitim shtiram. He says, oh, Madhusudana, the system of yoga, which you've summarized, it appears impractical and unendurable to me, for the mind is restless and unsteady. So Arjuna's saying, how can I can't do that? This is really difficult. For the mind, chanchalam himana, Krishna. Chanchalam, it means flickering. The mind is restless, turbulent, obstinate, and very strong, O Krishna. And to subdue it, I think, is more difficult than controlling the wind. And Krishna says, it's undoubtedly very difficult to curb the restless mind, but it's possible by suitable practice and by detachment. For one whose mind is unbridled, self-realization is difficult work. But he whose mind is controlled and strives by appropriate means is assured of success. So here Krishna is talking about mind control. But the idea of mind control is not about brute force. It doesn't mean hear no evil, see no evil, speak no evil. I'm going to repress the mind. You can't do that. It will explode somewhere else. You will cause yourself grave mental damage trying to repress everything. The idea is get a higher taste, get a taste for dedication by involving yourself with an appropriate sangha. Have some faith. Faith leads you to sangha. So we have a little sangha here. Get to know the people in this group, make friends with them, see what you can do for them. Otherwise, trying to control the mind artificially is going to cause you problems. Prabhupada comments, trying to practice yoga while engaging the mind in material enjoyment is like trying to ignite a fire while pouring water on it. Yoga practice without mental control is a waste of time. Unless one is engaged in Krishna consciousness, he cannot steadily control the mind. So a Krishna conscious person easily achieves the result of yoga practice without separate endeavor. Then Arjuna says, okay, but what happens if I fail? What happens if I try this for some time and then it doesn't work? What's the destination of a man of faith who does not persevere, who in the beginning takes to the process of self-realization, but who later desists and does not attain perfection? He says, doesn't such a man perish, or woman, like a riven cloud with no position in any sphere? This is my doubt, O Krishna, and I ask you to dispel it completely. So Krishna says, Partha naiva eka namutra vinashas tasya vidyate nahi kalyana krit kaschid durgatim tatra gachati. He says, a transcendentalist engaged in auspicious activities does not meet with destruction either in this world or in the spiritual world. One who does good, my friend, is never overcome by evil. Sincerity is invincible. So Srila Sridhar Maharaj used to say, sincerity is our only true capital. One who is sincere will never be defeated. So Krishna's telling him, don't worry so much about being able to perfectly follow all the different aspects of the yoga system that I've just described to you, but dedicate yourself to God and the rules will follow. Krishna reminds Arjuna that sincerity is invincible. Sincerity is appreciation for the truth, but must be borne out through our actions. It's not an abstract idea. You're sincere. If you're sincere, it should be demonstrated in terms of chastity, a determined pursuit of the ideal. So if you give up all your material prospects and surrender to Krishna, there's no loss. On the other hand, a materialist may do his dharma, his duty perfectly and gain nothing. As Jesus Christ put it, what shall it profit a man if he shall gain the whole world and lose his soul? And Krishna then points out, he may get a good birth in a Brahmin family. And after taking such a birth, he'll revive the divine consciousness of his previous life and again become attracted to the yoga principles. So it doesn't matter if we achieve perfect Krishna consciousness in this lifetime. Our goal is to stay in the kirtan. So Krishna concludes the chapter, Yoginam api sarvesham madgatinantaratmana shradhavan bhajate yomam same yuktatamo mataha. So the bhajate comes from the Sanskrit bhaj, which often translates as worship, but it's closer meaning to service and divine love, because many gods can be worshipped, even important men can be worshipped, but bhajan is really for the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And here Krishna is making a bold claim for himself. This is why many impersonalist commentators, they end their commentary right at the very end of the 6th chapter. And they don't put much attention to what Krishna says here about the highest yogi, but they want to tell you that you should follow the path of meditation. But Krishna is making a bold claim. He's saying the culmination of all kinds of yoga practice is in bhakti yoga, or divine love, Krishna prem. All other paths fall short. Divine love is the goal and the highest ideal of worship for bhajan. So looking back over the first 6 chapters, Krishna's explained the beginning as nishkama karma yoga, work without attachment. And he says that sort of practical sacrifice should be informed by gyan, or transcendental knowledge. And then you can deepen that with the 8-fold path of yoga and meditation. But all these different yogas are aimed at developing love of God. Yoginam api sarvesham. He says the greatest yogi is the bhakta. The best of all yogis is the devotee who has full faith in pure devotion and who adores me, Krishna, with all his heart, hearing and singing my divine glories and rendering services unto me. This is my opinion. So I found this interesting, or I remember I used to preach a lot to the Christians, and the idea that yoga culminates in beauty and charm and rasa, ananda, divine love, Krishna prem. It's a very powerful idea. So we're trying to tell people that the highest kind of yoga is love of God. And I remember I used to preach to Christians, and I found this in the Bible. It says, this is from St. Paul writing to the Corinthians. He says, though I speak with the tongues of men and the angels and have not love, I'm become as sounding brass or a tinkling cymbal. So if your language is full of interesting, wise sayings, but you have no love, then you're wasting your breath. And though I have the gift of prophecy and understand all mysteries and all knowledge, and though I have all faith so that I could remove mountains, But if I have not love, I am nothing. And though I bestow all my goods to feed the poor, and though I give my body to be burned and have not love, it profits me nothing. Love suffers long and is kind. Love envies not. Love is not boastful. It does not behave itself unseemly, is not easily provoked. Love thinks no evil, rejoices not in iniquity, but rejoices in the truth. Love bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, endures all things. Love never fails, but whether it be prophecies, they shall fail. Tongues, they shall cease. Knowledge will vanish. For we know only in part, and prophecy only in part. When I was a child, I spoke as a child, I understood as a child, I thought as a child. But when I became a man, I put away childish things. For now we see through a glass darkly, but then face to face. Now I know in part, but then shall I know even as also I am known. And now faith abides, hope abides, love abides. These are three, but the greatest of these three is love. So even in the Quran, the Bible, the Vedas, every other scripture, some hope has been given about the life of ultimate reality, the idea of divine love. But the highest and ultimate reality of divine love, this is given by Krishna consciousness and explained here in the Bhagavad Gita. There's my talk on the 6th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. So if you like, we can chant Hare Krishna together for a couple of moments, and then I will disappear until next time. Just give me a moment. Everybody. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Well, thank you very much, everyone, for participating. Tapanandini, Parneshwari Devi Dasi, Vrindavan Chandra, Brajasundari, host of Gita Talks, Priyanana. Priyanana. Hare Krishna, Priyanana. It's good to see you. Very good to see you. It's very good to see everybody. So I'm trying to give a little service here by talking about the Bhagavad Gita. It's not easy to speak correctly, so I take some help and inspiration from all of you for being able to speak and stay alive and remember the teachings of my Guru Dev. So thank you all very much, and we hope to see you again real soon. Any questions?
Hare Krishna. Yes, Prabhu, we have two questions from me.
You always ask good
The
questions.
first one actually is not a question. I always have questions.
Well, that's good.
Actually, the first one is not a question. It is like I'm asking you to comment. Can you please comment this verse? It is 6th chapter, verse 32. I consider the best of all yogis to be the one who knows the happiness and unhappiness of all beings as his own.
That's very
6:32.
beautiful. Yeah, so, you know, Brajasundari, normally when people give a talk on the Gita, they just do one shloka, because every shloka of the book, it's so beautiful and powerful. And, you know, you can take that shloka with you through the day and think about it and reflect on it. So it's artificial in a way to try to do a chapter and give the whole context, because Krishna moves in a crooked way and he weaves in and out of the truth and the argument. He is a perfect yogi who, by comparison to his own self, sees the true quality of all beings in both their happiness and distress. He says, Atma au pamyena sarvatra samam pashyati ya jana shukam vajadiva dukam sayogi paramo mataha. Well, that seems very clear. What is that you want me to comment? Is that it?
Simply, okay, let it be a question. In English translation, it is a person who knows the happiness and unhappiness. What does it mean, who knows? Does he feel it, or does he, or did he have an experience of all these feelings in his life, previous lives? Or what does it mean, who knows?
Well, you see the true equality of all beings in both their happiness and distress. Let me look at a different translation, just to, you know, I like looking at different ideas. Here's Sridhar Maharaj's book. That's 32. Here it says, I consider the best of all yogis to be the one who knows the happiness and unhappiness of all beings as his own. All right, let me see. This is a good translation by Annie Besant, the Theosophical Society. It's very close to the original. Not much speculation here. We're looking at 32. It says, he who through the likeness of self see equality in everything, whether pleasant or painful, is considered a yogi. Well, so I guess the idea, there's a few different ideas here, right? One is to see everyone equally, and the other one is the point about happiness and distress. So to see everyone equally, it means that whether someone is a man or a woman or black or white or Ukrainian or Russian, whatever their political beliefs, their particular bodily form, we know that within that body is a spirit soul, an atma, a jivatma. So we see everyone equally on that basis. It doesn't matter if they have a name like Radmila or Nadia or Mike or Tapanandini, you know. So this is the characteristic of a more realized soul. When normally we're educated, it was an interesting book that I used in teaching a while back. It was in Spanish, And the idea was, first, when you deal with little children, first you teach them about them, their body, you know. Then you teach them about their mommy and their daddy and the family. Then you teach them about the pueblo, the little circle community they have, the church, the drugstore, you know, the park. Then you show them, well, there's the city, which is a bunch of communities, and then there's the country, then the world, and the universe. And it was like an educated model. See, I'm teaching English, so I would say, okay, this is my nose, these are my eyes, this is my ear, this was my mouth, head and shoulders, knees and toes, knees and toes. Teach them little songs about that, and mommy and daddy and my family. We draw a picture of the family, right? So that's very limited consciousness when you think about me, and then mommy and daddy, my family. You see on TV, lots of commercials all the time. The family is the most important, right? But this is a very limited form of consciousness because it trains us to think the important thing is me. And then after that, the important thing is my mom, my dad, my race, my country, my politics. And so we identify with all these limited views of the self. But Krishna says here, try to understand the self is eternal, the soul is eternal. Everyone you come in contact is eternal soul. Now, sometimes the part about happiness and distress in that verse is interesting too, because, for example, you look on Facebook and you see, wow, so-and-so is in Acapulco. You know, let me see. I can be in Acapulco. Change my background. Here we go. Oh, Mahayogi's in Acapulco. I want to be in Acapulco. He's so happy, you know. Or you see, maybe they put me in prison for going to Acapulco. And oh, Mahayogi's in prison. Oh, he's so sad. I'm happy. That's good. I'm glad I'm so happy he is in prison. So we look at other people and we try to compare ourselves with them. I think Mahayogi died. He's in outer space now. That's good. I'm so happy. So because we're always comparing ourselves with other people, and we see, oh, this one is happy and that one is sad. And I envy the happy people, and I'm happy that the sad people are suffering. That is not the proper view of the yogi. The yogi sees this person is suffering, but he's a spirit soul, like me. You know, I have compassion. This person is happy on some level, but happiness and distress are fleeting. They're not here forever. You can't be happy forever. So happiness and distress, they come and go, but what I see is the eternal soul. Something like that is the meaning of that shloka. The idea is that an advanced soul sees, it doesn't matter if someone is happy, doesn't matter if they're sad, they're eternal soul. That's what I'm seeing. I'm seeing they're a particle of Krishna. That's the position of the yogi. So despite someone's sex, political affiliation, race, happiness, or sadness, I see them as equal. Does that make sense to you? Are you still there? Or did you just ask me the question and then disappear from the meeting? Hello? Okay. I think we lost Brajasundari. She got disconnected, right? Well, Brajasundari has a little boy, and that little boy is having some health issues, I understand. So we hope you get well soon and you're happy. But see, the devotee, Prabhupada used to end all his letters with your ever well-wisher. The devotee is your well-wisher. He wants you to do well, but he especially wants you to do well in a spiritual sense. Okay, so we lost our host. We chanted Hare Krishna together. We read the good book, the Bhagavad Gita. I highly recommend this. So if there's no further questions or anything, I think I'm going to disappear from the meeting. And once again, thank you, everybody. Sorry for talking too much.
Mahayogi, Lucia wants to say hello to you.
Hello.
Hi. Hi, Lucy. It's good to see you. Good to see you. Everybody say hello to Lucy. Hi, Lucy. Lucy's in Merida, in Mexico. There's Priyanana's in, I think she's in Thailand. Are you in Thailand? Yes? In Mexico, I'll teach you some Mexican Spanish, Priyanana. In Mexico, this means yes. That's yes, that's right. And this means no. That means no, and that means yes. There you go. So, are you in Thailand? Oh, wow. So we have Praneshwari, and I think she's in Miami. Tapanandini's in Merida. Priyanana is in Thailand, but she speaks Russian. And Lilavati Didi. Lilavati and Padmila Beldinskaya. One of these days, I will really try to learn Russian. Okay, everybody. Well, thank you very much, and we'll see you next time, okay? Bye-bye.